Hello and welcome to the North Metro SBDC programming.
Welcome everyone to talk about looking for talent or in non-standard ways, maybe through the state's program for disability, various trainings, various accommodations, various opportunities and resources to you as a business owner to find talent and take some of the talent you already have and to just solidify them as uh, the best possible employee that they can be through various trainings, uh, sometimes funded by the state in this program here, and reasonable accommodations that are mostly at no cost to you or very low cost in very limited circumstances, as our speakers here today will talk about, and so many different ways of helping you to find talent for your small business and and resources beyond, way beyond what we might think. So welcome, Jeff and Michael. Please take it away.
Yeah, so just a couple of things that at DVR that we help employers with. For the first thing, and probably the most important thing, especially for employers, is the tax credit. So if people hire an individual with a disability from DVR, they qualify for a tax credit. And the tax credit is from $2,400 up to $9,600. So if you hire somebody for one day, right, you hire them and you fire them for one day, you still qualify for the $2,400, right? People always want to know, okay, how do I get the 9,600? And that is where Jeff and myself comes in. We don't just leave employers out in the lurch. We walk with the employer to make sure that they are happy, right? Yes, the employee needs to be happy too and treated well and reasonable accommodations and all that. But we want to make sure that the employee is can meet the essential functions of the job, right? So if they're not showing up, if they're using profanity, if they're doing things they shouldn't be doing, right? The employer should feel free to fire them like they would any other employee. But that's probably the most important thing, or I shouldn't say the most important thing, but something that employers and solopreneurs always want to know is, how can I do that? And then the other thing too, so the state has this money. The other thing too that Jeff can also add is our apprenticeship. Right now, Governor Polis has put this pool of money for apprenticeships aside. And part of Jeff and myself and our colleagues' job is to talk to businesses and get that money out, right? Because it does no good just sitting in the governor's office. We need to get it out into the community. So part of the apprenticeship program is, yes, the person learns the skills. They're probably tied to an educational institution like Front Range Community College, right? So they take some classes in the afternoons or at night. They go to ABC shop to get their hands dirty and learn the skill. And then number three is the payment, right? So the state helps with the payment for these apprenticeships. So the employer doesn't have to take on that burden all by himself or herself, right? So the state realizes, hey, you're investing in this person, you're teaching him or her skills, you're giving your own talent, your own brain power, you're giving to this person. And so that is part of why the state is saying, hey, we can come in and we can help you, right? Pay for that employee. And then hopefully at the end, if they complete the 3 month, 6 month, 3 year apprenticeship, however long it is, then you as the employer have seen them and you think, oh, they are a good employee. Let me now hire them on as a permanent employee. So you really get a 6 month or year long window into this person and into their skills to see, are they going to fit. And then the other thing too is you train them the way you want to train them, right? So they know your systems, they know what you like. So it would make sense, right, in theory, for you to then take them on because they know they know where the tools are, they know how to work the inventory. You've taught them all that stuff. So hopefully in a perfect world, right, it's Kidsmith, they just come right on and it's not even a hiccup. It just moves straight across. So I'll stop there. Jeff, anything you want
That's
to add?
really interesting. I have a question around that. So a lot of like workforce, local workforce has have programs around apprenticeships, things like that. They'll provide even part of the pay for employees. Can that all be like wrapped together in addition to what you all do and be used as well? Have you seen that before?
Yeah, so just to give you a sample of what this really looks like, Raul, in practice. So when we think about, meeting our startups, our scale ups, and our small business community where they're at, the entrepreneur class, we've had some experience with that. There have been some apprenticeships built, and an apprenticeship is basically a commitment to establish a program to hire folks on. So what we're trying to do is, tackle some, high turnover rate, or maybe, it's hard to build a pipeline for talent. I helped to build the first digital marketing registered apprenticeship in the Western United States a few years back. And because there's so many businesses that focus on digital marketing and offer these services in the Denver to Boulder corridor, we're talking, somewhere around 5,000 companies. And so they're hiring for these skills, and they need to have a more robust pipeline. And we wanted to build a program where folks with just a high school diploma could actually go to school, learn as they're employed, and learning on the job as well. So it's earn as you learn model. Now, for some of the small businesses, startups, scale ups, they don't have to be the administrator of the apprenticeship. That's a big burden to put on a small business. They can become just an employer host site. They can host an apprentice, and they can groom that person, develop that person, mentor that person, so that he or she becomes the employee, the model employee that they want, without having to do the administrative burden. They can get all the other benefits that the state that will put into that, as well as our county workforce center. So your question is, can we take some of this programming and these resources and combine them together? We can. And even outside of the apprenticeships, we have internships where I've used these extensively within, again, small business, startup, scale up. And we built out internships for six months or so, because we've used our funding together with our county workforce center. And then the business decides, hey, do we want to hire this person on? Or at the minimum, the person gets valuable experience, and the business got essentially no cost labor, as long as the person was capable of doing meaningful work. So one example, Raul, I helped a gentleman who was on the news for the wrong reasons. He was in a car accident. He ended up being in a coma for 6 months. His wife escaped unscathed. And he came walking in our door probably about a year and a half later, and he's explaining his story. And I remembered, I said, well, you're the gentleman who was on the news, right? And he goes, yeah, I was. And he would have been a senior level engineer, one of a large enterprise company. Well, I helped him to do a paid internship just to get started with a small startup company that built robots for kids with autism. And he helped to build that company, first starting at 10 hours a week. Stamina improved. He went to 20 hours a week. And now he lives in Florida. He's part owner of the business. He's helping to drive it. He's gone back to work for another engineering firm, and he's making way more money than me again. And he's in Florida because that's better for his, for his overall health. But that's how we use these. And again, without the county workforce center, without the state resources, and tapping into some other partners as well, we couldn't have made that happen. But that's where, again, if we know what you folks do and you have an idea, not all the details, you just have an idea of what we can do, we can begin to connect dots in each other's worlds. And that's where we can be a broader synergistic, value to the communities that we're serving. And there are a couple examples, and I may recall them as we go along, about some overlaps into SBDC, but a lot of my work has been with small business. And there used to be a program in Boulder called TechStars that helps small startup companies, especially with a tech focus. And we did lots of internships, and we even had a couple of those, became employer host sites for apprenticeships in coding, software development. So that's how we can take these opportunities to pipeline that Michael was explaining, and we can come right up to a company and meet them where they're at. We won't be burdensome. There has to be a value proposition, so it's the right time, the right service, or the right benefit. And then, the administrative burden oftentimes, won't be on the hands of the employer host side, especially if it's an apprenticeship, because we'll have that sponsorship somewhere else. So it's really a neat and elegant way to do it. But there's many other ways too, that we can help, Raul, and we'll have a little bit on some, skills-based hiring, and we can help and maybe for companies that are interested in using that as they grow and need to get talent, this is a great way to make sure that you're getting more women, that you're getting, more ethnic minority populations, or you're just, you're getting more people in general outside of the common mix of candidates you get.
Yeah.
Because you're looking more at the competencies and the skills versus do you have niche experience as a project manager in construction? Well, if you've been a project manager in healthcare, you've been a project manager in IT, a lot of times you can crosswalk without having to get a bachelor's degree in construction management.
Yeah, I love that example because you showed someone who is pretty high level that something happened to them out of their control. They became in a disabled situation, but then they were able to reintegrate based
Absolutely.
on this program.
Correct.
And I think that brings up a couple of things for me. Is like it dispels sort of maybe a stereotype that many of us have about what disability actually means, what that
Yeah.
could look like. And also, I like the idea of like connected the dots in terms of what X company needed and such employee and the value that they could actually provide each other versus just dropping people in random seats. It's not. It sounds like
Well,
it's
yeah,
very intentional about how you're connecting.
everything, Raul, has to be intentional. We're not a high volume talent sourcing program, and there are staffing agencies. If we need to get 50 people into assembly jobs in the next couple of months, well, that's where we will tap into the workforce centers and we'll look at third-party staffing agencies, and they sometimes will put 40 people into a job and knowing that only 20 or so are going to last. It's just sometimes the way it works. Michael and I are very intentional about trying to find the right fit up front. And that's where we can use, some features where we co-invest the cost of that initial training period. If we identify the kind of supports and training a person's going to need over the first 90 days, we can basically pay 50% of the wages, the gross wages. And again, if that's a person like the gentleman with the head injury who's been out of work for a couple of years, for whatever reason, and we think he or she has the skills, but we just want to cement it in place, then we have that particular bridge that we can build using that on-the-job training feature, or we just do the paid internship as well, where there is no, where we are subsidizing the wages, and our county workforce center partners will often come together and we'll braid together so that we can get the longest duration possible. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways. And in the case of that example I gave, there are a lot of ways to offer value and even just having somebody do some of the day-to-day work. But that company got a senior level mindset and a leadership acumen at a bargain basement price. And now, of course, he's, but I mean, I think we were paying him something like $25 an hour, is what we were subsidizing the wage. And he's probably doing $130 an hour worth of work because he helped actually expand the company. He kind of built some businesses on the side and had done some other things as well as being a senior level engineer. So he brought a lot of expertise. Yeah, go ahead, Michael. You have some other things.
So you probably remember last year Governor Polis said that there are two jobs for every one unemployed person. So even if all the unemployed people got a job, there'd still be open vacancies.
Yeah.
And so to Jeff's example here, right, that person, right, wouldn't have received that job because if we're just looking for somebody who's cookie cutter, who's an accountant, who's a lawyer, who's a plumber, right, a square peg in a square hole, if we're just looking for that, we're missing this hidden talent pool of people with experience that's just going to go where, right? And so selfishly, what I always say too is selfishly, wouldn't you want everybody to be employed? Because if they're employed, they pay taxes, and guess what? With more taxes, we get better roads, better schools, better hospitals. So we all benefit as a society, right, by employing more people. So Mr. Business Owner, Madam Business Owner, let us help you address your need, right? You have a labor shortage, let us address your need. It's good for the employee, it's good for the employer, it's good for society, right? So it's a win-win-win.
Yeah, and are there any particular jobs or skills that you feel are the most in need, in demand, that this program is helpful for, or it's pretty much any and all? What does that look like?
Like How many fingers do you have, right?
Yeah.
It's any and all, because people walk in into our offices, right, around the state, and like Jeff said, every day, right, because of a medical diagnosis, because of military service, because of a car accident, because of whatever, people are coming to us every single day, right? And sometimes it's just age, right? People just get older and they need, like, I'm wearing glasses, right? I didn't come with glasses out of the womb. And some people wear hearing aids, some people use a cane, some people use a walker. You know, they can still do things. They have the background, they have the experience. They may just need an accommodation, either an accommodation of time, maybe an accommodation of their workstation, maybe an accommodation of whatever. But that is where Jeff and myself can come in and help a business owner and say, hey, here are some guardrails, right? Somebody has come to you and asked for an accommodation. We can say, this has been decided in case law, right? So, you know, watch out on this side, watch out on this side. But in this middle, you know, that's a big sandbox that you can play in. So the accommodation needs to work for the employer and for the employee, right? Somebody cannot just say, oh, I'm a roofer and I don't want to climb ladders anymore, right? That's kind of an essential function of the job. So
Right.
what is essential functions of the job, and can that be adapted? Because some jobs, it just cannot be adapted, because this is the job, right? We cannot, you're in manufacturing, it's going to be loud, right? There's no way to get around it. We can give you some ear protection, we can do some other things, but if noise is going to be a problem, this is always going to be noisy, right? You're not going to get away from the noise. So it just depends on that, how the employer can do that. And so that's why it needs to be reasonable. It's not an absolute, reasonable and an accommodation, right? So those are some things, those are other trainings that Jeff and myself can talk about, the specifics of that and more examples, but that's just, you know, other stuff too. But the main point that I wanted to say is, hey, it benefits all of society, the more people we employ.
Yeah, and
And
Raul, when you think about the skills, I'll just add one quick comment there. We can help to identify skill gaps and fill them. We've, in my time here in 10 years, we built 3 standalone career-connected training programs for a cohort of different businesses to meet specific needs. One example, there's a software platform called Salesforce.
Yeah.
And so Salesforce, you know, you can be a developer, you can be an administrator. There's a couple different career tracks there. And so we had some larger companies and we had some smaller, more startup companies that said, hey, we just aren't finding enough people with Salesforce. So we got together with some workforce center partners and we had a cohort of maybe 60, 70 folks go through. I had some folks who were blind and deaf who got into this. Every single person that wanted to work got hired almost immediately after going through the certification program. And we didn't build that at Front Range. We didn't build it at CU Boulder. We got Salesforce themselves to come and help administer this training and do it inclusively so that accommodations could be put in place for some of the folks that had disabilities. And then because we knew how they succeeded in the classroom, we could turn right around and place them into companies and say, we can confidently say, John, with, you know, who's disclosing this type of disability, will be successful in your business if these are the conditions that are in place. So that's how, you know, almost 100%. And we just had a company in Boulder called Globig. They just built a career connected training academy in-house, a 2-year investment I've been working on with them for IT business operations. But these are going to be people with just high school diploma, currently maybe working for companies. They can become sales development reps, business management, account management reps, all these jobs that you can do in IT, but also anywhere, even small businesses, insurance agents need people who can do a variety of different sales, business development, and use the digital funnel. All of these things are going to be taught, and they're going to be taught rapidly with on-the-job learning experiences and a micro internship and then placement assistance through this company. And oh, by the way, Globig is a digital marketing IT company themselves that's highly successful. So we're building it in-house now to serve the broader community. And it isn't just going to be IT that's going to benefit from about 15 different career tracks that are going to be offered here. Again, you can go to community college Front Range, you can go to CU Boulder, you can go a lot of these traditional pathways, but now we're building, you know, some of these alternative, even shorter term options, high bang for the buck, get you into industry, and then you can upskill and do more education as you want. And we've got a few more examples, but we think of small businesses, they need people right now with the right mix of career connected skills, we're trying to meet them on demand. We're not the only one-stop shop. We'll bring in our other partners and resources to build these things once we identify, where the demand is. So could we explore that with the business community SBDC serves? Sure, maybe at some point, but not all of your folks. Some of the, the ones who are solo entrepreneurs who are, there's only a handful of folks, no, this may not be relevant, for them right now, but we even have some funding available through our workforce center partners. We braid our resources to upskill incumbent staff. So they want to learn additional skills to do more things for the company. We have funding available to do that as well. And so all this can be explored as we kind of figure out, where your community could receive assistance and the way to make it and enroll in your job and in your role. What led you to SBDC and what is your background kind of in the business world look like? That gives us kind of a perspective on, on your outlook and maybe some of the things that you're looking to accomplish as we think about alignments.
Absolutely, yeah. So, and let's say the incumbent employees with that, would they still have to be certain qualifications that they meet to qualify for the program?
No, actually, that is agnostic around whether you're a disability or anything else. That's a pot of money that serves everybody, incumbent staff. We don't have it available every month of every year. But what we can do is tie it in. And then for the folks that have disabilities, what I've seen happen on 3 occasions in maybe the last 6 years is the Workforce Center has paid more broadly for this incumbent upskilling. Maybe we've done a training on site to address specific skill sets. So we're actually a whole business unit is getting upskilled. And then in one case, there were a couple individuals with disabilities who enrolled into our program, and we provided additional support. And we helped to figure out what accommodations might be needed as this person is learning new skills. One had autism. As they're learning new skills and incorporating changes into their routine, then we were this add-on resource that was available. And so, no, in order to support the incumbent staff, that is not dependent upon on whether you're a disability. Now, the funding streams do have some fidelity criteria. So we want to review that and make sure, it's done for the right reason at the right time. And that's where we connect the dots, with the right folks. So there is, but it's not going to be, hey, you have to be earning under a certain income or, there are some grants out there that we work with where not our program, but the Workforce Center programs do, where it's kind of income related. Once you're in our program, though, we can even send people through medical school, which I've done once. We sent them to medical school, and Governor Hickenlooper, this is true story for both of you. He did call one day on a Friday. I was the only person in our Boulder office. I answered the phone and somebody said, yeah, this is the top aide, or this is the chief of staff to Governor Hickenlooper. I'd like to talk to someone in your office. And I said, well, I'm the Easter Bunny. I was like, the governor's office is going to call me on the middle of Friday afternoon. I did. I said something kind of smart mouth. And, we kind of hung up. They called back and said, yeah, hey, whoever you are, this is the chief of staff for the governor's office, and you are a government, you're state of Colorado employee. I learned real quick. No. I was like, yeah, my name is Jerry.
Michael Gordon. That's what you said.
My
right?
name's
My
Michael
name is
Gordon.
Right.
I'm just here covering the office. I usually live in Las Vegas, so I'm just kidding. But but it was because we paid for a gentleman to go through medical school at New York University instead of CU or a less costly option. But the reason he went to New York is they had technology, adaptive technology through their programs to help this person become an ophthalmologist who had, not full paraplegia. He was very mobility limited. And it was this exoskeleton piece that they used in the operating theater. And there are surgeons at NYU University who would like to use this same technology. They're like, I'd love to kind of hang off at a 62-degree angle, working on the eye there too. And but it's not, unfortunately, it's not available for them. But it was all that expense that we had to kind of justify, spending. But in the long run, the payoff is you got a remarkable surgeon who's now available to serve the community who wouldn't have been available if we didn't all come together through our tax base and through all of the funding of our programs to make these things available. And I'd like to get, that's a story, Raul, we would love to get out on the news, or, Channel 9 has some morning programming where they highlight, things going on in the community. What a great thing to just show, hey, you folks who pay into taxes, you helped this young man accomplish his dream.
Absolutely. And then he's giving back to the community with a unique perspective as well. That's so crucial.
Yeah.
Can you get a little into how the reasonable accommodations might work in your programs? Because I'm imagining I'm a small business owner. I'm thinking, well, that sounds potentially expensive to provide reasonable accommodations. How do you get around that problem or that mindset?
I'll say one word and then I'll kick it over to Michael, and he can, because Michael is actually kind of helped to build a training for employers that went really in depth into accommodations and in the kind of overlap into case law and stuff. But here's the bottom line, Raul. They have to be reasonable. It has to be a roadmap to success that makes sense for both parties. Whether this is Walmart, whether it's your small business, or it's Google, a large enterprise company. It cannot interfere with business operations, whatever we're asking for. If we're asking to change the working conditions, the way the job is typically performed, or the structuring of the job, the order of the tasks. One of the more recent accommodations I worked through was a person with a master's degree in a human services agency. She was really struggling, after having a head injury 3 years ago, to keep her stamina in the afternoon. We restructured the task order so in the morning she's doing the more complex stuff, and in the afternoon it's a little bit easier. Now she works through to 5 o'clock and doesn't have any issues. But it took getting in there. No cost to the employer, no cost to anybody else. We actually helped to fund a couple of additional things that she's now using on the job. Oftentimes employers will be able to fund that. Most accommodations, however, cost nothing, and the ones that do, it's about a $500 or less investment one time. And then Michael mentioned the tax credit that's available, but for $2,400 at a minimum, which is going to offset everything. Man, I could give that one or two rare elephant in the room examples of when more money's been spent. But again, in 10 years, maybe one or two examples. If it doesn't work for your company, Raul, then there are times I can cite 5, 6 times a person is offboarded because we just haven't been able to find that pathway to success. But even with a business as small as 2 people, we did find an accommodation once for a person that they thought was going to be more expensive, but we were creative and we found some alternatives, and the person is, to my knowledge, is still working. And now the business has 10, 12 people in there. So it's got to be reasonable. And if it's too much cost, then that's not reasonable either, for your small business. If you have more than 10 employees, then yeah, we do have to think about it. But if you say you only have, 2, 3, 4 people, then honestly, you might want to provide an accommodation to keep the person, on staff, but you're not exactly obligated under the ADA. And Michael, that was about 5 words I said. So let's kick it back over to you. Let's kick it back. Anything else you want to add about the accommodation process and the way we work through that with companies?
Yeah, I just want to say, to echo what Jeff said, I would say the majority of reasonable accommodations are zero cost, because sometimes people just says because of their disability, right? It's either a hearing loss or it's autism or whatever. People can ask their boss, instead of you just telling me, right, at a weekly meeting, instead of just giving me verbal instructions, I need something to refer back to. So in a weekly meeting, yes, you can tell me this is what I want you to do, but then can you follow up with an email and give me written instructions too? I need the written instructions and the verbal instructions. So, okay, yes, that costs the boss or the manager, a little bit of time to now put it in an email or something. But again, as Jeff said, if that's going to keep the employee and they're a good employee, right? Why wouldn't you want that? Plus, you probably need some SOPs, some procedures and policies in place anyway. So you're just helping yourself documenting these things and saying exactly step 1, step 2, step 3. So that's one. Another one that we sometimes see is I need a visual aid, right? Either because of my disability or ADHD, I cannot read or I have trouble reading. So if you can provide me, this is a photo of what this rack or this cabinet should look like. Now I can see that, right? Kind of like building a puzzle box, you have the photo over there. So now I can either figure it out on my own because I can get to the endpoint, or if I cannot get to the endpoint, at least now I have a goal to work towards. Another example is just somebody may be going through chemotherapy or something like that. They're taking some drugs. and that makes them nauseous, they're throwing up, whatever it is. And the accommodation may be, hey, I'm not coming into work at 8 o'clock because I'm nauseous, right? It's better for me to come in at 10 a.m., right? But then I work through my lunch, or I just take a short lunch, then I work till 6. Instead of me coming in at 8, being in the bathroom for an hour, throwing up, I'm not useful to you anyway. So that's not a cost to the employer, right? That's just shifting. And then the other thing too is sometimes people may request a longer lunch because, hey, whatever it is, and then the employer may say, hey, I cannot give you a longer lunch because we got to cover the front desk, but I can give you, a tea break here at 10:30, and then maybe another break at 1:30. You still have your lunch, and so that's why Jeff was saying, right? It's got to work with both parties. And then of course the animals. That's the biggest thing that people say, hey, I need this animal with me, right? Because this animal alerts me when something is about to happen. I'm about to pass out. My blood sugar is running low. The dog starts barking, or the dog starts licking me, or whatever it is the animal is trying to do, right? Then the business can also say, okay, yeah, this is here. But again, right, if you're in a restaurant in a kitchen, right, is a dog going to be in the back of a kitchen? Yeah, probably not, right? So that's where the employer is going to say, I understand, right? I'm empathetic. I'm really sorry, but we cannot have an animal, here where we're making food, right? The same Coors Brewing, right? We're not going to have an animal where we're brewing, this stuff. Again, it's not because the employer is not sympathetic, the employer doesn't care. It also depends on what kind of job this employee needs to do. And now the employer can say, okay, maybe you're not going to become a brewmaster. Now maybe we need to look for you, like Jeff said, as a marketing specialist, or a tour guide at Coors, or something else that where the dog can still be there, but the dog is not close to the food preparation and something. So again, I hate to say it depends, right? But it really does depend on the job.
No, that
Yeah,
makes
and it's
sense. Yeah.
exactly, Roland. It's always got to be with an eye toward the reasonable part of that, if it's going to impact, business operations. And that's where, if you're going to ever work with our program, Michael, myself, any other colleagues, any business that you serve, might be looking to consider a candidate from our program, or somebody from just the general community. The Stanley Hotel once upon a time re-engaged our program by just calling out of the blue, and I was covering that area, while living in the Boulder Longmont area, and they just needed some help, thinking through, how do we accommodate a person, and is it a reasonable request? And as it turned out, it really wasn't a reasonable request the way the person was asking, but we found an alternative. And then that person was able to be much more successful, but neither the person nor the employer was really thinking about the way to build that bridge until we came in there and said, hey, I've seen this before. This isn't my first rodeo. How about you both think of it this way? And that's one of the ways that our program could offer, again, at no cost, no fees. We could offer that expertise. And then the Stanley's like, hey, come on up. Let's have a meeting. Let's take a tour. Let's have lunch. Let's figure out if there's other ways that you can help us as well, beyond just, retaining that particular person. So, we have no wrong door options for working with us. I did purely retention for CU Boulder for about 3 years, until we built some paid internships, and then a few people have been hired in a few different jobs. But I helped offboard a couple people who got injured on the job. It wasn't going to work. There were no other jobs they could shift them into with the injuries and the extent of the disability. So they came into our program. We figured out a new pathway. But because they knew us and we knew them, we were able to build that. Things happen out there for small business as well. So we are a resource that they can tap into, as well as helping with the recruiting, and then all the other connections out there, that we can utilize as well, because sometimes disability is not the first priority, but they do want to look at diversity with ethnic minority or women or other ways. And so I've connected programs that specialize in those areas. Google once in Boulder said, we're just a little more interested corporate right now in women and gender than we are anybody here in Boulder. And I said, oh yeah, by the way, on the CU Boulder campus, there is a whole think tank. Let's get you connected to those folks. They remembered that a couple of years later and said, hey, you really helped us in that moment. Now let's come in and talk. So, that helps as well. And then the education, Raul, there's a logical sequence to the education flow, and we can provide that information through trainings or in one-to-one consultation like this. But we kind of build this foundation like you're building a house. We learn about disability, the empowering ways to communicate and interact. And then we talk about ADA and how that's a tool of empowerment. It's not a punitive tool. Folks worry about the ADA that, hey, I'm going to get punished, or if I hire someone with disability, man, I got to do all these things, or the government's going to be on me, or if I fire them, I might get sued. No, we dispel all of that stuff really quick, really easy, really elegantly in our trainings. And then we move folks forward to thinking about, okay, now we want to hire, and let's hire objectively and inclusively, and not just disability, but let's put programs and policies and practices in place that are going to benefit our company using skills-based hiring and some of these other methodologies. That, yeah, more people with disabilities are going to come on board, but I'm going to get the right fit more often than not. And we've got some big company and small company success stories now that say, yes, this has really helped us. And we're a
And
little more
Jeff used the
diverse.
word elegant, so he wasn't referring to me, he was referring to himself. So
Well, you're
just
more elegant than I am,
clarify.
Michael. Any elegance I had, Raul, left quite a few years back, probably around the time that I realized I wasn't going to be a pro football player.
So Raul, you should be happy you didn't see our presentation, because we have some photos in there that was 50 pounds and 10
that
years ago for both of us, right?
There
yeah,
you go.
that's exactly
We got
right.
the
My
glow up
more
versions today.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, at some point in time, we have to live in the present, not try to relive the glories of the past.
Right.
Colorado native, Raul. So proud of my high school football roots. But are you Colorado native, Raul, or did you come here from
No.
somewhere else?
California originally, yeah.
Ah,
SoCal.
so okay, yeah,
Yeah.
Do you
SoCal.
have family with the fires that are affected by the fires?
Oh, thankfully no. Yeah. But
Okay.
I know a few people, unfortunately.
Oh
I'm
wow.
sorry.
But
Yeah. So
yeah.
yeah.
But no, it's what I love about what you're saying is you really thought y'all have thought about all the different components and where things can drop, the ball can be dropped, and really being creative, being a bridge, and bringing that wisdom experience to help tie it together where maybe communication is lacking, or effort, or ability to imagine another way. You are willing to step in and bring the energy to that and figure
100%.
something out for both sides, employees and employers.
You got it, man. That's
Yeah,
it.
no,
In a
that's huge.
nutshell.
And what I'm really seeing like a potential high value for like certain businesses or industries in particular, where maybe keeping staff, or there's a high turnover rate, or just finding people that are appropriately trained for some of these things is difficult. This could be a great pool where they can go to you and try to help with that issue, as they're solving it in other places potentially as well. So it doesn't mean you're limiting yourself to trying to find people through the traditional means like Indeed, etc. But you're using this
Correct.
other way to say, hey, maybe there's somebody else out there, some more resources available, some experts like
You're
yourself
just
that can help
expanding the
us.
pie. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
You're right. 100% right. And
I'm thinking
so
about like specifically like childcare. I know that's been a really tough industry for turnover, staffing, and whatnot for various reasons. Have you seen that and been able to plug in that industry at all specifically? Do you have experience with that?
I can
I'll
answer,
let
Michael, but
Jeff.
go. I'll go
Yeah.
first, and then
So
we'll kick it over to see if Michael has any perspectives, because he covers a part of Metro Denver, and some of our community partners that might be tackling the problem a little bit different than what I've seen. But here's what I can say, Raul. That is an issue from corner to corner in the state, and if we were to take this conversation over to California right now, it would be an issue corner to corner there as well. It is across the nation and probably across the the world, the first world anyway, where employment operates in the traditional sense of the word. But there are some things that are being done to try to make it a little bit easier. And it's not just a governmental solution. This is where we have to look at private-public partnership. There are some lower cost available childcare services for those folks that might be working on the margins. So let's say again, sending a child to childcare, I don't care what your income level is, that can be very expensive. And then depending on how far you need to commute to drop the child off and go back and pick them up, childcare providers have certain hours that they're operational within. and, you know, all kinds of things that you have to keep in mind in doing that. And so what some of our county partners and on the government side, we've tried to figure out where can be a central location that the services can be provided, and how can we help folks, you know, who really qualify, that are most in need. How can they tap into these services, be part of our programming, so that we're supporting them? And then to anyone that's enrolled into our program, has a disability, or is enrolled into one of the workforce center programs where they're getting a deeper level of support, or military veteran programs where they're getting a deeper level of support, we have availability to subsidize costs of childcare. But you've got to be attached to the program, and that's where it's on the individual level where we're paying it. However, beyond that, to serve the bigger, broader community, to serve a small business, an SMB, or to even move into the enterprise level, that's where we have to still get more creative and think private public together. You know, how can we take some of the available backbone structure within the public sector with some of the ingenuity within the private sector, and come up with programs that are going to work, you know, in both cases. And I know Vail Resorts has been thinking outside the box on this, as well as around housing. There are some things that we're looking at some alternative ways of up in the Longmont area of looking at childcare that's part of a micro housing initiative for military veterans. I'm kind of on the periphery of those conversations with the city manager and a couple of other folks. I'll be learning more in the near future, Raul. And that's some learning that I hope to be able to share. I'd love to share. If there's anything groundbreaking occurring there, I'd love to bring it to SBDC and into the community that you serve, because you guys are the Rolodex of resources. We want to be in your Rolodex as one of your options, but I'd love to stack up some additional ones, especially around childcare. Right now, the best option that we have are for those folks who need that more direct one-to-one assistance, and who qualify for some of the services and programs that are available. We can help along with the cost, and maybe trying to find a little bit more centralized location. But the way we're working from an employment pipelining perspective, we've created an apprenticeship, which is housed a little bit more on the western slope than in Denver, Raul, where we're getting more people into the world of childcare. And so they can go to community college, they can become
This is what's on
employed.
the screen now.
Yeah,
This is
and they
what
can
I'm saying.
become employed with a larger organization that provides childcare, or they can, you know, go through the program, and then they can open up their own shop. So we're trying to get more providers out there in the community that have the right credentials, the right skills, and the passion to do this. And we're formalizing the standards of care as well, so that it isn't so hit or miss.
Okay.
And
Is
so
that-
that's how we're approaching it from a couple of different angles. But there are a lot of gaps that still exist out there
Sure.
right now, and that's where I know right here. I'm at the Boulder Chamber of Commerce today. They have one committee that is looking at housing and childcare and ways to work with private industry to try to come up with some creative solutions. But I don't have your perfect answer. And Michael, do you have anything else that you'd add?
Yeah, so I'll drop this link in the chat too, but this is, I don't know if you've seen this, Raul, but this is the registered, we call it RAP, R-A-P, Registered Apprenticeship Program. So this is the directory of all current registered apprenticeship programs in the state of Colorado. So you can just toggle here on the left by program, you know, you can see here all the things I'm not going to show you, but by county, by industry. So I just typed in childcare right here, and I can see there's 3. So Red Rocks is one of them that offers this apprenticeship program. The other one is here in Mesa at Mesa University.
Yep. Mesa
Yeah,
University.
and then Red Rocks is again. So why can Red Rocks be in here twice? It's because they are working with employer, like Jeff was saying. They are the education part, right? Red Rocks is the education part, just like SBDC can be the education part. But then the practical place, right, where the people have to go, the kindergarten, the elementary school, where they have to go, they have multiple employers. So it says here multi-employer. So they have people there in Lakewood that they're probably working with daycare facilities to train these people. So in the morning or in the afternoon, they get some education, then they go help, or vice versa, right? Maybe they help in the morning with the kids and then go to school at night, however that works. But this is what we were talking about at the start, where the state comes in and can pay part of that salary for that employee. So I mean, this isn't of course is not enough. We need to do more, but this is just something that is happening right now. So I'll stop sharing and
That's
then I'll
perfect.
drop that in the chat so you can
Yeah.
play around with that program directory.
No, but it's
Yeah,
great to know
Raul,
because so
it's a
many
tough one.
employers, so
Go
many
ahead.
don't know anything about this, and it's just
Totally.
one more part in their back pocket.
It really does. And that's where, again, you guys have an expertise in the services and the resources and the things that you can offer and provide. Have you met the new director of the Boulder SBDC? I know
Yes.
she's pretty new to her job. I attended what's called a sector partnership meeting back before Christmas, and she happened to be there as well, and was just brand new. So we're not going to meet, tomorrow, but we are thinking off on the horizon a little bit. And I'd love to see, what are the areas that she most wants to focus on in the Boulder area, and what are you in the North Metro area, and maybe
Right.
overlapping
Right.
into the parts of Denver where, Michael covers, because he and I kind of border up around, Broomfield, Arvada area, and then he kind of goes south a little bit, and I kind of go north a little bit. And we would love to kind of figure out which areas are you seeing of greatest need? And I think your questioning
Right.
is helping us understand there are skill gaps out there. There are positions that they're struggling to find talent for. Childcare is a big issue. I know there's some rideshare programs and there are some transportation innovations. Enterprise Rent-A-Car has a program that is a bit unique that around rideshare that they're getting out there. There are a couple of rideshare programs for people that are working at, say, Amazon or out near all of those warehouses that are kind of close to DIA that go from certain parts of the metro area. So we have some transportation possibilities, but still not enough. But sometimes SBDC might know of some of these programs, but not all of them. So again, if we keep adding to your Rolodex, you have more things that you can put on the table when you're trying to help a business become sustainable and to become as viable and profitable as possible, which
Yeah,
is going to be your
absolutely.
goal.
That's a big, huge piece of what I'm trying to create is more resources and awareness around those resources, and just being able to connect the dots between the right people. So now, I'm going to take this to our advisors so that they're more aware of y'all and some of the resources that you're connected to. In addition to our clients, the small business owners themselves. Now, are there any other specific highlights that you guys want to talk about here before we wrap this up?
Michael, I'll kick to you first.
Yeah, like I said, you saw how wide-ranging our conversation was. We have several specific training programs that we're happy to present to an individual employer. It doesn't just have to be to SBDC. If somebody calls you and says, "Hey, I have a question about accommodations or animals," you can just send them to us. If you want to be there, of course, you're welcome to do that. The last thing I will say is October, like I told you, is National Disability Awareness Month. We're happy to talk to you any month of the year, but that's typically when most people want to call us. So we fill up. So if we cannot talk to you in October, it's just because we're talking to other places. And then you can never call us enough, right? Our job, me and Jeff's job, is business outreach, right? So if you want to call us 10 times a week and say there's this business and this business and this business, you're not bothering us, right? That's our job is to go talk to them. So don't feel like, hey, I just called them last week. I don't want to bother them. No, you're not. This is what we're paid to do. So call us anytime we can be helpful or useful.
100%.
And I was just, Raul, just two more points, and that's really all I think I'd have, even if we run through some of the slides in our deck. This would probably be some of the wrap up content or topics that we'd be putting out there. Number one is we are kind of expanding our focus in trainings. We're covering the baseline, we're building the foundation, but a lot of businesses, and I have taken calls from small businesses, and now that we have a better brand awareness out there around neurodiversity. And what do I mean by neurodiversity? Well, that is the head injury, folks, but it's also autism, but it's ADD, ADHD. A lot of ADD and ADHD, dyslexia falls into that category. So some of our learning disabilities, some of the mental health. The neurodiversity community and the mental health communities are not one and the same, though. So there are some what we call types of neurodiversity, neurotypes, that fall under neurodiversity, and then others that are more mental health. I don't want to worry about exactly who's labeled and what and so forth, but we're building specific programs. I could distill it down, to 4 specific steps that anybody would want to take to best support ADD, to best support autism, to begin exploring what disability looks like. Because without intent, it just doesn't happen organically and with osmosis. The unemployment rate for the 25% of the Colorado population and the adult population. Oh, is it one? Oh, hi. Oh, I guess I have a couple minutes left here. But yeah, 25% of our adult population, with disabilities, a lot of them are underemployed or unemployed. So we do have to kind of set the groundwork in place and just dispel. Most of it is around perception. Is that if someone discloses a disability, the immediate thought is this liability? Is this risk? Is this underperformance? Is this costly? Is this, all these other what ifs? When in actuality, the truth is that this could be a real value proposition and it could be an additive benefit. But with neurodivergence in particular, we can be very pinpoint precise on some tips and techniques and guidelines and just simple best practices that roll right into everything you're already doing. We can discuss them at the drop of a pin. If anybody is interested, if that ever comes up, ADD, how do we support that? We have people struggling, or, not only can they come into our program and receive one-to-one assistance, but we can give a micro training on that particular topic and really help them out and drive awareness. And the second thing, Raul, and I'll leave you on this and I'll be quiet, is just that there is a bottom line benefit. The research and the studies are in. If you are intentional for disability at the medium-sized level, and especially to enterprise where the studies are at, everything economically improves. A shareholder return, revenues, income, profit margins, productivity goes up by 25%. Morale, and this is now the last 15 years running, they've been doing these big surveys. So it does matter, and you sell more goods and services to more people because we're in a globally interconnected community. And if you don't get someone from disability today and you don't know if they're on staff, wait a little while, because of the number of folks post-COVID that have long COVID or mental health, you're going to get folks in there with disability. This is just a great way to start exploring the best way to, just like you would a single mom or other folks that you're trying to support and optimize as well. And then we get into universal design, put some practices in place that don't just support disability, but benefit everybody. We can train a little bit on that. That's it, Raul, because I know we've come to our time. And Michael, any last comments you got? Take it away.
I just
No,
one more quick
thank
thing.
you.
If you could just provide what's the best way to get a hold of you in case somebody wants to reach out.
I just sent you an email, Raul, and copied Jeff on it. So you have my email and you have Jeff's email.
Perfect.
Yep, that's probably the best way right now, Raul, for that contact information. And we can always point and direct if we have some folks, who might want to tap into another office or other staff capacity. But man, I appreciate it. And I'd love to learn more about your role and things you want to accomplish, your colleagues at SBDC want to accomplish. And, however we can come alongside and align with you, because now you have more awareness of us. But
Absolutely.
really the question is back to you. Where do you want to go? How can we best help you? Is it coming to a resource fair? Is it being at one of your events and having a table set up where people can walk by and just learn about us? They can take a pamphlet or they can take a flyer. Those things we can do as well.
Yeah, let's definitely reconnect and see how we can collaborate and whatever that.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for your time, Ro.
Thank you. Thanks, Raul.
You guys take care.
Bye-bye.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. That was an insightful talk on what it looks like for disability in the workplace and how small businesses can benefit from looking for talent outside of the normal standard ways of trying to find talent. And there's some hidden gems many times in there and opportunities to develop people using some reasonable accommodations. As y'all stated, I think the biggest thing is that one of the biggest takeaways for me is to this is just another resource to help with staffing, finding talent, and to ensure greater engagement, greater productivity, and opportunity for your employees, and so many resources available to help you as an employer, a small business owner, to get the most out of your people and help them thrive and the business thrive.